This week we confirmed yet another well-qualified nominee to the federal bench. Now Kyle Duncan of Louisiana can get to work serving on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. His qualifications are truly impressive, but his sterling reputation among colleagues and peers was an even greater testament to Mr. Duncan's fitness. I'm glad the Fifth Circuit will benefit from his expertise. Speaking of well-qualified nominees, the Senate will vote today on the President's choice for Secretary of State. We'll consider an outstanding nominee. Fortunately, we have the votes. And later today, we'll confirm Mike Pompeo as our nation's 70th Secretary of State. We've been discussing Director Pompeo's abundant qualifications all week. In a little over a year, the Senate has had two opportunities to assess his considerable qualifications. Last January, a bipartisan supermajority of us saw fit to confirm him as CIA Director, and his performance in that role, exemplary by all accounts, has given us even more compelling cause to confirm him to serve as our chief diplomat. He's earned the trust and the confidence of the Commander-in-Chief by providing top-notch counsel on critical issues and helping lead ongoing efforts to lay the groundwork for negotiations aimed at denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. Along the way, he deepened his reputation for fairness and discernment. I'm glad President Trump has nominated this distinguished leader to be America's chief diplomat, and I'm glad a bipartisan majority of senators will vote to confirm him today. It's just too bad that Director Pompeo's confirmation process offered such a prime example of the historic partisan obstruction that my colleagues across the aisle are visiting on the Senate. All fair observers agree that Mike is up to the job. Here's how the Washington Post, not known as a bastion of Republican thinking, titled their editorial, simply, "Confirm Mike Pompeo." But despite all this, Democrats on the Foreign Relations Committee almost took the unprecedented step of voting him out with an unfavorable recommendation. That attempt to play politics with our nation's security fortunately failed. But even so, according to the Senate historian, he became just the second Secretary of State nominee in recent memory to clear committee by a margin of only one vote. The only other time that's happened in all of the Senate's history was also at the hands of Senate Democrats during the Trump administration. And once they got here on the floor, they were also the only two Secretary of State nominees in history who needed cloture to receive confirmation votes. So let me say that again. From the founding of the Republic until 2017, the Senate's never required cloture to confirm a Secretary of State. Now we're at two, both in this administration. I guess Senate Democrats are in a history-making mood because over the past 15 months, they've embarked on a partisan campaign to block, obstruct, and delay President Trump's nominees that is quite simply without precedent in American history. Let's put things in perspective. In the first 2 years of the last six presidencies combined, the Senate subjected nominees to a total of 24 cloture votes. During the last six presidencies, during the first 2 years, 24 cloture votes. Add up President Carter's first 2 years, President Reagan's first 2 years, and so on through Presidents Bush, Clinton, Bush, and Obama, 24 total cloture votes on nominees. And for President Trump, 88 and counting, just 15 months into his term. By the end of the day, it'll be 90 cloture votes on nominees. This is partisan obstruction elevated to an art form. And every one of us has seen it firsthand. It's not just the high-profile nominations. Scores of unobjectionable choices for all kinds of posts have languished on the Senate calendar. It took months and several deadly accidents to persuade Senate Democrats to stop obstructing a fully qualified nominee to head the Federal Railroad Administration. Or take the example of district court judges With only one exception, we've had to file cloture on every single district court nominee. It doesn't matter if every Democrat on the Judiciary Committee supported the nominee. It doesn't matter if every Democrat in the whole Senate supports the nominee. No matter what, our colleagues across the aisle are insisting on obstruction for no apparent reason. Here's some of the final vote totals for these district judges: 96-1, 98-0, 97-3, 95-0, 96-0, 98-0 once again, 100-0. Back in January, it took more than a week of the Senate's time to confirm 4 district court judges, and not one senator voted no on any of them. A whole week to do 4 district judges, and not one senator voted no on any of them. Now, Mr. President, our problem is not the qualified personnel before us. Our problem is that nearly half the Senate has decided that resisting for the sake of resistance is more politically advantageous than doing right by this institution or by our constituents. This, regretfully, is where we are. Democrats chewing up hours of Senate time on nominees that literally no senator opposes. I understand my friends on the other side have a number of disagreements with the president. That tends to happen in politics. But that's no excuse at all for this historic obstruction of non-controversial nominees. Bad for the Senate, it's unfair to the American people. That's why I support Senator Langford's efforts to enact the very same rules change that a large bipartisan majority agreed to back in 2013 when the Democrats were in the majority here in the Senate. It would empower the Senate to process nominations more quickly while preserving ample opportunity for debate. It is precisely the rules change that my friend, the Democratic leader, supported back in 2013. I joined in that bipartisan effort, along with a number of my fellow Republicans. It passed 78-16. 78-16. The White House may have changed hands, but the last time I checked, fair is still fair, and common sense is still common sense. So Senator Langford is giving my Democratic colleagues their very own chance to show that principled convictions matter more than political convenience. I'm proud to back his proposal and glad to see the Rules Committee advance it to the floor yesterday. There's no reason why every senator shouldn't be able to join us. Otherwise, until our Democratic colleagues put aside their historic obstruction, Republicans will continue to do our duty and process the president's nominations one way or the other. Let me repeat that, Mr. President. We're going to process these nominations one way or the other. After Mike Pompeo, I filed cloture on Rich Grenell's nomination to serve as ambassador to Germany. We'll vote on his confirmation later this afternoon.